Sullivan, it being 2 p.m, questions without notice. Senator Wong. Oh, sorry, Senator Birmingham was taking the call. My apologies.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. President. I seek leave to make a statement regarding ministerial absences.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. I advise the Senate that Senator Reynolds will be absent from question time today, Thursday, 10 December 2020, due to ministerial business. In Senator Reynolds' absence, I will represent the Minister for Education and the Minister for Decentralisation and Regional Education in respect of regional education. Senator Payne will represent the Minister for Defence, the Minister for Veterans Affairs, the Minister for Defence Personnel, the Assistant Defence Minister and the Minister for Defence Industry. Senator Cash will represent the Minister for Communications, Cyber Safety and the Arts.
Senator Wong. Order.
My question is that— oh, sorry, did you call me, Mr.
I did,
President?
Senator Wong. The call is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham. Why did Mr Morrison and his ministers have to be asked 6 times in the House in question time yesterday, over this week, before finally telling the truth and admitting that their own legislation will enable cuts to the take-home pay of workers?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham.
Well, thanks, Mr. President. I thank Senator Wong for her question. I can't say that I have been in the House of Representatives question time this week, and nor have I reviewed the sequence of questions that were asked there. So, Senator Wong, your question relates obviously to the types of reforms to industrial relations that our government has outlined, reforms that build upon the pillars of our economic recovery plan in response to the COVID-19 global pandemic and the shockwaves that has sent across the global economy and our own. And although our economy has withstood those shockwaves far better than most of the rest of the world, in seeing businesses survive that elsewhere would not have survived, in seeing jobs survive that elsewhere would not have survived, we still face challenges in terms of that economic recovery. And to make sure that we do get the continued growth in jobs that we have enjoyed that has brought us to this stage of the comeback from COVID-19, we're making sure that through the budget we deliver in relation to growth and investment, to make sure that Australians, through our tax reforms, have got more money to spend, to make sure that businesses have got more incentive to invest, and to make sure that there is confidence to employ as well.
Senator Ayres.
And our approach right through this pandemic has been to be one of engagement and consultation, be it with the states and territories, be it with business or the trade union movement. And we welcome and thank the cooperation that has been shown through the different stages of the pandemic, Mr. President. We equally welcome the fact that in relation to reform of the IR system or looking forward, there was a very lengthy consultation process, bringing together the different groups for over 180 hours of discussions held as part of those industrial relations discussions, all of which designed to try to get collaboration and consultation around a pathway forward.
Senator Wong, a supplementary question.
Well, my supplementary is to give the minister a second chance to be honest with working families and admit that the government's new laws enable cuts to take-home pay at the end of one of the hardest years in the lives of so many Australians.
Senator Birmingham.
Mr. President, the reforms we're putting in place, first and foremost, are about getting more Australians into jobs. Australians have the best chance of having the best pay packet when they are in a job, when there are more Australians in jobs and when we see growth in the jobs market. In terms of Australians being better off, Mr. President, employees in casual work wanting to transition to part-time or full-time work will be better off under the reforms that we are proposing.
Wong, on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. President. I asked both in the primary and in the first supplementary. I asked about cuts to take-home pay. I asked the minister to be directly relevant to that question.
Both of your questions, Senator Wong, did have some politically loaded phrases in them. The minister, in my view, can't be instructed to answer a part of the question. He is talking about the specific policy and package of bills, and I do consider that to be directly relevant because he's talking about the government's policy and not anything else. Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr. President. In relation to Australians in jobs being better off, as I was saying, those in casual work wanting to transition to greater levels of permanency will be better off under our reforms. Those part-time employees wanting more hours of work in key industries will be better off. employees being worried about being underpaid will be better off under the reforms that we have outlined. Employees working in significant greenfields projects.
Senator Wong, on a point of order.
Cuts to take-home pay. That's the question.
Senator
Direct
Wong,
relevance.
The minister is
won't you
being
tell the
directly
truth,
relevant. Senator Birmingham.
Mr. President, we are making sure that Australians will be better off because there will be more incentive for more jobs. With more jobs, you've got more opportunities for Australians to succeed and to get ahead.
Order. Senator Wong, a final supplementary question.
Despite repeatedly denying its legislation permits the take-home pay of working families to be cut before finally conceding it will, earlier this afternoon Mr Porter said of his legislation, and I quote, "There's plenty to keep everyone interested and alert." What else in this government's reforms under Mr Morrison should workers be alert to?
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr. President. Well, I would be interested to have time to go and look at the transcript of Mr. Porter's remarks. I'm sure Mr. Porter was probably being asked about something like the Senate inquiry that may well occur, of which I have no doubt that those opposite will run a scare campaign, as they already are, every step of the way in relation to the consideration of this legislation. I know that they can't help themselves in terms of wanting to run a scare campaign. They can't help themselves. They will opt for negativity, they will opt for scare, they will opt, of course, for mistruths and misleading at every step of the way. Now, we are quite happy, having gone through an exhaustive consultation process in this legislation, to now submit it to the scrutiny of the parliament, to have the extensive Senate inquiry and to give the opportunity for those who want to find points of interest in the bills to be able to debate them through that Senate inquiry and for the facts to shine through, because the facts will show these reforms will be good for Australian businesses, good for employment and create more jobs for more Australians.
Senator Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is for the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham. Can the minister inform the Senate how the Morrison government has stood alongside Australians through the challenges our nation has faced this year?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks,
Senator
Mr. President. Mr. President, Australia and the world has faced a year like none other, and I thank Senator Patterson for his question because, indeed, we are indebted and grateful to all Australians for all that they have done this year as the nation has stood together in response to the biggest economic shock since the Great Depression in the face of a once-in-a-century global pandemic. Australians have demonstrated their resilience and they should be congratulated and thanked for the efforts that they have made, the sort of resolve and spirit our country has been built upon. Indeed, all levels of Australia have been challenged, including governments, and we have worked to stand alongside Australians in terms of the actions we've taken to save lives and livelihoods across our country. We quickly closed our international borders when the threats were evident that the transmission of COVID would most likely spread through those international transactions of individuals. We put health measures in place to suppress the spread of the virus. Our first aim was, and still is, to keep Australians safe. We then, of course, Mr. President, in recognising the impacts of those measures to keep Australians safe, worked hard to cushion the inevitable economic blow that would follow. We put in place, most notably, the JobKeeper program, the single largest support measure ever introduced by an Australian government. We created JobKeeper, we have extended it and transitioned it in ways to keep Australians safe and secure in their livelihoods. The Reserve Bank has indicated and assessed that JobKeeper helped to save 700,000 Australian jobs. Our measures have, throughout the course of this year, provided the best opportunity for Australians to have their lives protected, their livelihoods protected, and to put us in the strongest possible position for the future.
Order. Senator Patterson, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Minister, can you outline how our economic comeback from the COVID-19 pandemic is building in momentum?
Order. Order. Senator Wong, I know it's the last question time. Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. Well, we do have strong data coming through to show that although there is a tough road that is still ahead, the economic comeback in Australia is well and truly underway. We know that the recovery has some way to go and that we face many global headwinds. But indeed, the consumer confidence has once again surged to its highest level in a decade, Mr President. Consumer confidence at its highest level in a decade. When Westpac's monthly index jumped 4.1%, their chief economist Bill Evans said, after only 8 months, the evidence seems clear that sentiment has fully recovered from the COVID recession. Now, that's only sentiment, Mr President. We acknowledge the work is in continuing the strong jobs growth that we have seen to date and to make sure that we get Australians back into more jobs. That's what our budget is built around. It's what our policies are built around, to maintain that, whilst of course also seeing Australia's AAA credit rating reaffirmed and the support to make sure that we have that growth across the economy.
Senator Patterson, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Minister, how is the Morrison government's focus on creating jobs paying off for Australian workers and the Australian economy?
Senator Birmingham.
Mr President, the growth in jobs and employment is encouraging. There is, as I've stressed, a way to go. But over the last 5 months, almost 650,000 jobs have been created, including 334,000 jobs of Australian women and 226,000 jobs of young Australians. The effective unemployment rate has come down from a peak of 14.9% to 7.4%, whilst, Mr President, the participation rate in the workforce is at 65.8% and approaching its pre-crisis level. Australia's strength as we entered this pandemic was indeed the fact that we had record levels of employment alongside record levels of workforce participation. We had managed to create resilience in the Australian economy, and pleasingly we have seen that resilience see us through these tough times. By global comparisons, Australians can hold their heads high at the way in which we have managed together to keep Australians safe and secure this year.
Senator Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham. In an article in this morning's Australian Financial Review entitled "Porter Retreats in Union Brawl," it is reported the Morrison government may amend or even dump provisions of its Industrial Relations Bill. Is the government persisting with its attempt to cut the take-home pay of Australian working families?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham.
Mr President, that is absolutely not the intent, the purpose, or will be the result of the government's reforms. The government is implementing these reforms, as I have said already, time and time again in this place, to create the best environment for jobs and employment growth to continue strongly in this country. Mr President, we've seen some 80% of jobs that were lost or had hours reduced due to the pandemic have been regained to date. But that still shows there's work to go in other ways. We also know from the fact that the cooperation that occurred during the pandemic that there are opportunities for efficiencies and improvements to occur in our industrial relations environment and workplace relations space. That's what these changes seek to do. They seek to ensure that we get practical improvements to the way in which the workplace relations system works, and in terms of those practical improvements, we expect to see real gains for businesses and employees. Without business success, there is no employment success, Mr President. That is a key point that is fundamental to everything about job creation in this country. Without business success, there is no job success. So we have to make sure our businesses are successful. That's what our investments, be they in infrastructure, in skills, in tax reforms and incentives, are all about creating the environment for jobs growth. These reforms are about creating the environment for jobs growth as well, reforms to create more jobs so that any worker ultimately wanting a job will be better off as a result of them.
Senator Gallagher, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Senator Stoker said in her first speech, and I quote, "Industrial relations reform is something our nation desperately needs and which the Conservative side of politics should promote." Does Senator Stoker support the retreat floated in this morning's papers?
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Thanks, Mr. President. Well, of course, Senator Stoker gave a fine first speech, as I recall, and I again congratulate her on that, and many fine contributions since. And of course, Mr. President, in terms of those arguing for these types of reforms, why don't those opposite listen to small business? To small business, the Council of Small Business Organisations, who have said very clearly that the types of reforms we're proposing are about managing your business and everything else in the agreement so you can survive. If you're a worker, you'd rather have a job. And small business are, of course, committed to trying to create those jobs, and we are committed. We are committed to delivering those jobs. Now, it says it all that those opposite in their scare campaign have already resorted to anonymous newspaper stories and not even bothering to look, of course, at the legislation, the details,
Senator Birmingham,
and the fact they are sensible, measured,
expired. Order. Senator Gallagher, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Jason Falinski, Mr. Tim Wilson and Senator Bragg have advocated for the greater industrial relations flexibility, jointly authoring a opt-out and lobbying within the coalition. Do coalition backbenchers support the retreat by the Morrison government flagged in this morning's papers?
Senator Birmingham.
So, Mr. President, it's hard sometimes, I know, to follow the strategy of those opposite. Indeed, the Australian people have found it hard in recent elections to follow the strategy of those opposite. But Mr. President, I seem to have had the first series of questions from those opposite I was asked today, suggesting that the reforms were too harsh, and now Senator Gallagher's based all of his questions around whether we've backed down and the reforms aren't harsh enough or something. Now, these reforms are sensible, thoughtful reforms based on extensive, lengthy consultation.
Senator Wong, on a point of order.
Direct relevance. The minister said questions whether or not there's been a backdown. We invite him to tell his coalition
Senator
colleagues
Wong,
if there's been a retreat or not.
That is no point of order, Senator Wong. Senator Birmingham.
Now, Mr. President, I don't know whether there's a split over there, whether Senator Gallagher is actually arguing that there should be further reforms that ought to be in this package or not, but I can assure him, and I can assure every other senator and every Australian, these reforms are the result of hours upon hours of work and consultation between the government, between the union movement, between businesses, in seeking to find sensible approaches to create a more secure employment environment.
Senator Rice.
Thanks, Mr. President. My question is to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Minister Payne. On the 8th of December, the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, Niels Meltzer, appealed to British authorities to immediately release Julian Assange from prison or to place him under guarded house arrest during US extradition proceedings. Minister, today is International Human Rights Day. Will the minister join this call from the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture in calling for Mr Assange's human rights to be protected?
The Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr President. I thank Senator Rice for her question. I haven't specifically heard about Mr Meltzer's call today, but I have previously said that the government rejects any suggestion by the UN Special Rapporteur that the government is complicit in alleged psychological torture or has shown a lack of consular support for Mr Assange. As far as I understand and am advised, the Special Rapporteur has not been in contact with the Australian government to raise these concerns directly. I've specifically raised the situation of Mr Assange and his conditions previously with senior British officials, and I am assured that his circumstances are appropriate and humane.
Senator Rice, a supplementary question.
Thanks, Minister. Minister, I acknowledge your diplomatic and political work to secure the release of Kylie Moore-Gilbert and note that these efforts went well beyond consular assistance. Will the minister recognise that Mr Assange's situation is not simply a consular case and offer the same diplomatic and political support to secure his release?
Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr President. I don't believe it is possible to directly equate cases such as these in the consular context or, in fact, in the legal context, Mr President. Currently, Mr Assange's extradition case is adjourned until the 4th of January next year, when Her Honour will hand down her decision. I'm not going to provide a running commentary on those legal proceedings, but the Australian government continues to monitor Mr Assange's case closely, as we do for Australians in detention overseas. As I've previously advised the senator in the context of estimates, Mr President, consular officers have attended his extradition.
Order.
And
Senator
other
Rice, on a point of order.
Thank you. A point of order with regards to relevance. My question was very simple. Will the minister recognise that Mr Assange's situation is not simply a consular
Senator
case?
Rice, again I say to senators, you can't simply get up and repeat part of a question without making a point as to how the answer is not relevant to all of the questions. Senator Payne was being directly relevant to the question at that point, talking about the assistance being provided, Senator Rice. Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr President. I was going to add to my answer that consular staff have had discussions with Her Majesty's Prison Belmarsh authorities. They are assured that Mr Assange has access to the care that he needs. Due to privacy considerations that we extend to all consular clients, I am not able to disclose any further information relating to Mr Assange.
Senator Rice, a final supplementary question.
Yes, thank you. Minister, 65 of approximately 160 inmates in Belmarsh Prison have tested positive for COVID, putting Mr Assange at serious risk. Will you make representations, you personally make representations, for his transfer to house arrest for the duration of the extradition proceedings to protect his health and his human rights? Today is International Human Rights Day.
Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Unfortunately, Mr Assange has withdrawn consent for the Australian government to consult about his personal circumstances, his health and his welfare in prison. Mr Assange withdrew that consent on the 13th of June last year. We have raised on a number of occasions with the United Kingdom government and with prison officials our expectations on how he would be treated. The High Commissioner in the United Kingdom has received direct assurances that Mr Assange is held in appropriate conditions with access to a full prison regime of medical support and access to legal advice, noting prison COVID-19 social distancing.
On a point of order.
Yes, thanks, Mr President. Again, my question was whether the minister would
Senator
make
Rice,
personal
Senator Rice,
representations.
resume your seat. You can't stand up and simply repeat a question. What is the point of order, Senator Rice?
As relevance, my question was, would the minister make personal
sit down, Senator Rice.
representation?
Not even Senator Payne was being directly relevant to the answer. Directly relevant. Senator Payne.
Thank you, Mr President. Let me conclude by saying that the High Commission has written to Mr Assange 18 times offering consular support since his agreement was withdrawn on the 13th of June last year.
Senator Wish-Wilson.
Most recent time was the 8th of December.
Senator Wish-Wilson.
We have not received a response from Mr Assange or his legal team
Senator
to
Payne,
any
time
one
for the
of
answer
those
has
18
expired. Senator Wish-Wilson. Senator Patrick.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is also to the Minister for Foreign Affairs and concerns the recent signing of a Memorandum of Understanding between the Government of Papua New Guinea, the Fly River Provincial Government, the China Fujian Zonghong Fisheries Company for the construction of a $200 million multi-function fishery industrial park on the island of Daru in close proximity to the Torres Strait. Did the PNG government consult with the Australian government prior to entering into this agreement, which was announced by the Chinese Ministry of Commerce and strongly backed by the Chinese ambassador in Port Moresby? What views has the Australian government expressed to PNG about this project? What are the national security implications of Australia of a permanent Chinese fishing presence next to the Torres Strait? Is it not the case that such a presence will complicate our security and provide China with a new foothold for interference in PNG?
The Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Payne.
Thank you, Mr President. I thank Senator Patrick for his question and some brief advance notice of the nature of his question. I am aware, Mr President, of a Memorandum of Understanding being signed on the 13th of November this year between Papua New Guinea's Western Province Provincial Government, the Chinese fishing company Fujian Zhonghong Fishery Limited and the Papua New Guinea National Fisheries Authority. Mr President, while bilateral arrangements are of course a matter for the respective countries, we are in contact with the Papua New Guinea government on the reported Memorandum of Understanding, in particular to ensure that the full range of Australian interests, including in fisheries protection, are fully safeguarded. We are highly trusted partners, Australia and Papua New Guinea, as demonstrated in the signing of our comprehensive strategic and economic partnership just on the 5th of August. Even in the context of COVID-19, Mr President, we were able to implement that CSEP. So we have the closest of relationships at both the political and the operational levels. I would advise the chamber that it is our view there is some way to go before any material activity commences in relation to this MOU. Normal monitoring and enforcement actions by Australian authorities continue to operate to particularly protect our fisheries. We expect all fishers in the Torres Strait region to follow respective Australian and Papua New Guinea laws and international obligations. Our engagement in the Pacific, Mr President, is driven by our commitment to the shared Blue Pacific vision of a secure, stable, inclusive and prosperous region. It is Australia's view that all external partners must respect our region's collective security interests. We make that clear in our engagement and we expect others to do the same.
Senator Patrick, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Minister. What are the implications for the operation of the Torres Strait Treaty, especially the treaty's provisions relating to fishing activities likely to arise from a large Chinese maritime facility at Daru, including the potential operation of Chinese-controlled fishing vessels under the PNG flag in the Torres Strait? Given that the Chinese fishing fleets have a well-known tendency for over-exploitation of marine resources, how will Australia protect the marine ecosystem of the Torres Straits from their depredations?
Senator Payne.
Thank you, Mr President. I think that is a good question and there will be more work to do on this matter, clearly, as we seek to understand more in relation to the details of the Memorandum of Understanding between those organisations and the Papua New Guinea government. But I would advise the chamber that the Australian Border Force has an ongoing presence in the Torres Strait, has a very close working relationship with law enforcement agencies and with our Papua New Guinea counterparts. Commercial-scale fisheries, Mr President, would not be considered a traditional activity under the Torres Strait Treaty and would not be permitted. Only residents of the protected zone are able to undertake such activities, which is intended to protect the air, the sea, the land of the Torres Strait, including the native plant and animal life, including the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Flora and Fauna, the CITES, such as dugong and turtles.
Senator Patrick, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Given Australia's status as PNG's top aid donor, with $596 million in assistance in 2020-2021, and our close bilateral ties, including our support for PNG's response to the COVID-19 crisis, will the Australian government press PNG to be mindful of our national security concerns in relation to China? Will the government propose to PNG any specific alternatives to replace the proposed fishing vessel projects at Daru?
Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr President. There's a number of issues in Senator Patrick's question, but the first thing I would reiterate is the closeness of the Australia-Papua New Guinea partnership, manifested literally in August of this year by the signing of a comprehensive strategic and economic partnership. That says that we have the closest of relationships at the political and operational level. As I said, there's a number of aspects to Senator Patrick's question, but one thing I would like to draw the attention of the chamber to is the work that we are particularly doing in Western Province, for example, to address their health and development challenges, including through our investment in the Mabadawan Health Centre and in food and in water security. We will continue to support Papua New Guinea's recovery, both in health and economic terms, from COVID-19. We have a number of programs in relation to water, in relation to food security and in relation to sanitation, which are very important to the recovery and the strong continuation of the region, and we will work closely with our partners on those.
Senator Van.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is for the Minister for Employment, Skills, Small and Family Business, Senator Cash. Could the Minister please update the Senate on how the Morrison government has kept Australians in jobs and supported Australian businesses through the unprecedented labour market challenges of 2020?
The Minister for Employment, Skills, Small and Family Business, Senator Cash.
Thank you, Mr President, and I thank Senator Van for his question. And, Mr President, as 2020 draws to a close, I would just like to thank all of the small and family businesses out there, the almost 3.5 million of them that employ almost 6 million Australians each and every day, for everything that they have done in what has been an incredibly challenging year for them, a year like no other. But more than that, a year that they could never have predicted. This year, as we all know, Australia and Australians, they have been tested like never before. Lives and livelihoods have been lost, and many Australians, including those small and family businesses, through no fault of their own, they are doing it tough. COVID-19 has, without a doubt, had a devastating impact on the Australian economy. But when we look at where we were before COVID-19 hit, we've actually entered COVID-19, and in particular when you look at the labour market, from a position of economic strength. And again, that is because of the hard work and dedication of our family businesses, our small businesses out there. In February 2020, Australia had a record number of people in employment. 13 million Australians were in employment. This included a record number of women in employment. It included a record number of Australians in full-time work, and it included more than 1.9 million youth in employment. When we came to office in 2013, we said that we would be a job-creating government. We would put in place the economic framework that would allow businesses to prosper, grow and create more jobs for Australians. And since we were elected to office, we have now overseen the creation of 1.5 million jobs. And, Mr President, full-time employment has accounted for around 57% of total jobs growth over that period. But we acknowledge governments don't create jobs. We put in place a policy framework. And to all of those businesses out there, small and family in particular, we say
Order. Senator Cash. Senator Van, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Minister, how has the Morrison government delivered record economic support to help Australians through this unprecedented crisis and to stay connected to jobs?
Senator Cash.
Well, Mr President, as you know, to protect the health of Australians, tough decisions had to be made by the government. And part of those decisions were to close down parts of our economy. And what did that mean? It meant that businesses, through no fault of their own, had to close their doors. And as a result, many jobs across Australia were lost. But what we did as a government was that we moved quickly and we moved decisively to put in place record economic support to support the economy and households to get through COVID-19. And as the Leader of the Government has already stated today, this included JobKeeper, JobSeeker, the Cash Flow Boost, the SME Guarantee Scheme and early withdrawal of superannuation. We put in place a suite of policies that businesses and Australians were able to look at to see what suited them. As a result of these measures, Mr President, we have now seen 648,500 jobs return in the last 5 months. And again, we thank those businesses out there who are doing the right thing by Australians and giving them a job.
Senator Van, a final supplementary question.
Thank you. As the world looks forward to 2021, is the minister aware of any signs of recovery from the setbacks of the coronavirus, and what is the government doing to support this comeback?
Senator Cash.
Well, Mr President, in terms of the policies that we put in place, what they have done is ensure that businesses have been able to reopen their doors and in many cases keep them open, but also get Australians back into jobs. So when we look at the national effective unemployment rate, it has fallen to 7.4% from 14.9%. Almost 75% of those who had lost their jobs as a result of COVID-19 are back at work. And certainly there are encouragingly signs of recovery. The OECD, they've upgraded Australia's economic growth outlook by 0.3%, confirming our economic recovery is underway. The OECD has also emphasised the Morrison government's economic response to the COVID-19 pandemic and specifically pointing to JobKeeper, personal income tax and the job maker hiring credit have all assisted in getting us to where we are today. But again, Mr President, it is those small and family businesses out there, the backbone of the
Senator
Australian
Cash, time for the answer has expired. Senator Keneally.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, representing the Foreign Minister. Sorry, this question has been incorrect. I apologize. This question has a typo in it, and I apologize to the Minister. My question is to the Foreign Minister, Senator Payne. I apologize to the Minister. Thank you. How many Australians are stranded overseas and registered with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade as wanting to return home?
The Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Payne.
Thank you, Mr President. Thanks, Senator Keneally, for her question. Around 39,000 people overseas are registered with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and wish to return to Australia. Mr President, over 430,000 Australians have returned from overseas since the government recommended that Australians reconsider the need to travel overseas. Since March, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade has supported over 32,700 Australians to return on over 500 flights. That includes over 11,200 people on 77 government-facilitated flights since March. A further 118 passengers landed in Hobart on Sunday from Delhi on a DFAT-facilitated flight with Qantas. Since the 23rd of October, DFAT has facilitated 13 flights with 1,847 passengers. Those numbers are, of course, constrained, Mr President, by the capacity of quarantine availability in Australia through the caps applied by the states and territories and agreed by the National Cabinet. Further facilitated flights with Qantas are planned for Frankfurt, Chennai, Paris, London and Delhi. Since the 18th of September, when the Prime Minister spoke about these matters, Mr President, after National Cabinet, over 45,400 Australians have returned to Australia. That includes more than 17,500 Australians registered at that time with DFAT, and of these, Mr President, over 3,800 were vulnerable. We continue to help those, Mr President, who are vulnerable through our hardship provisions, and the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade has distributed significant funds to a number of those Australians. Mr President, the Consular Division of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and our consular officers around the world are literally working, with no exaggeration, no hyperbole, 24 hours, 7 days a week, to assist as many Australians as possible to return.
Senator Keneally, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. How many of those currently stranded, of the 39,000 who are currently stranded, were registered with the DFAT on the 18th of September when Mr Morrison promised to have them home by Christmas?
Senator Payne.
Mr President, I don't have the numbers broken down in that construct that Senator Keneally has asked about. As I said, since the 18th of September, over 45,400 Australians have returned to Australia. That includes more than 17,500 Australians registered with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. The process of supporting passengers, supporting Australians, Mr President, and organising flights means that in the last 4 weeks alone, we've made more than 30,000 offers of places on flights to Australians registered overseas. That's resulted in around 3,000 people taking up nearly all the seats available to us on relevant flights. There are Australians who are not able to accept flights that are being offered to them. There are Australians who indicate they have multiple ties to the country they are in who are not able to depart immediately. Some airlines are being allocated additional capacity specifically for vulnerable Australians.
Time for the answer has expired. Senator Keneally, a final supplementary question.
Thank you. The minister has previously advised the Senate that 26,000 Australians were registered with DFAT on the 18th of September. If 17,000 have come home, that would suggest some 9,000 are still stranded on the day the Prime Minister made that promise. So, given today is the 10th of December, the last day for stranded Australians to land in Australia, quarantine for 2 weeks and spend Christmas at home, what does the minister have to say to those 9,000 stranded Australians who will be stranded overseas for Christmas as a result of Mr Morrison's broken promise?
Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I absolutely reject Senator Keneally's characterisation in her question then. Since the 18th of September, Mr. President, over 45,400 Australians have returned to Australia, including more than 17,500 Australians registered with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. And, Mr. President, today, tomorrow and every day between now and the end of this year and, frankly, into next year, we will continue to support Australians to take flights, particularly vulnerable Australians who we have supported on facilitated flights. I indicated there are further flights planned for Frankfurt, Chennai, Paris, London and Delhi. Mr. President, there is no denying that this is a very, very difficult situation, not just for Australians here, but internationally. And the government absolutely recognises that, Mr. President. The government absolutely recognises it is difficult for families, it is difficult for individuals.
Senator Payne, time for the answer has expired. Order. Senator Wong, Senator Keneally, Senator Payne, time has expired. Before I come to you, Senator Mackenzie, it has been It's been drawn to my attention that we're joined today in my gallery by the family of the late former Senator Susan Ryan. And I know travel restrictions prevented many family members coming to a number of our condolence motions. So to Justine, Ben and Kate, welcome to the Senate. Senator Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My question is to the Minister for Trade, Tourism and Investment, Senator Birmingham. The increasing trade tensions with China are escalating the concern of Australian farmers and export-focused businesses and highlighting the need for Australia to secure our sovereignty and diversify our trading markets. Can the Minister update the Senate on how the Liberal and Nationals government have been growing our export opportunities for Australian businesses to drive the comeback from COVID-19?
Order. We're nearly there. The Minister for Trade, Tourism and Investment, Senator Birmingham.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just on indulgence, can I again acknowledge with the late Susan Ryan's family in the gallery the enormous contribution that she made in a groundbreaking way to this nation. Mr. President, can I thank Senator Mackenzie for her question. There is no stronger advocate for so many of Australia's exporting industries than Senator Mackenzie, and indeed I know full well how strongly she and all members on our side have championed the interests of our export industries in recent years. And in recent years, our government has succeeded in bringing into force more trade agreements that provide more opportunities for new markets than any other government in Australian history. The Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for the Trans-Pacific Partnership included new free trade agreements with markets of Canada and Mexico, and in doing so eliminated more than 98% of tariffs across them. The Indonesia-Australia Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement sees this year over 99% of Australian goods exported by value entering duty-free or under significantly improved preferential access, a long sought-after agreement with Indonesia that we have secured and delivered. The Hong Kong Agreement guarantees all Australian goods enter duty-free. The Peru Agreement eliminates more than 99% of tariffs by 2024. PACER Plus, I am pleased to say, Mr. President, will enter into force this Sunday and will support our Pacific neighbours, particularly in their economic recovery from COVID-19. And these, of course, come on top of the trade agreements negotiated earlier in the life of our government with the three large North Asian countries of China, Korea and Japan. On Tuesday this week, we brought into force our world-leading digital economy agreement with Singapore, which improves regional digital trading conditions and makes it easier for exporters to do business. Meanwhile, Mr. President, we have implemented some 26 of the actions under the 15-year India economic strategy of our government, delivering opportunities in that market and in so many others for Australian businesses
Senator
to
Birmingham.
grow.
Senator Mackenzie, a supplementary question.
Thank you. Can the Minister please outline what action Australia has either considered or is pursuing through the World Trade Organisation to stand up for Australian primary producers following the imposition by China of prohibitive tariff increases on Australian wine and barley?
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr. President. Indeed, I have expressed, as has our government, our deep dissatisfaction and concern with the actions of China in a number of areas disrupting trade by Australian exporters into that market. We have, as a government, used and stood by the rules-based international trading system based around the World Trade Organisation. We have done so, Mr President, by initiating a dispute with our friends in India on concerns about sugar subsidies. We indeed initiated a dispute with our friends in Canada in relation to wine subsidies. In that matter, we settled the arrangements with Canada on those wine issues following dialogue and discussion. And I emphasise, Mr President, that just because you get to the point of initiating a WTO dispute doesn't take dialogue off the table. The opportunity will always remain to do so, and whilst we consult and consider initiating such action against China in relation to Bali, we also would wish the Chinese government to come to the table and be willing, as Australia is, to have that dialogue and resolve these disagreements.
Time for the answers expired. Senator McKenzie, a final supplementary question.
Can the minister outline what the Liberal and Nationals government is doing to create further export opportunities for Australian farmers and businesses?
Senator Birmingham.
Mr President, whilst having achieved many new market opportunities for Australian farmers and businesses, we have been relentless in seeking to create even more. During our time, we have grown the amount of Australian trade covered by preferential terms from some 26% up to 70%. Recently, we signed the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, providing more common rules of origin across the nations of our region, which will make it easier for both goods exporters as well as new opportunities for services exports across the region. We are actively continuing to negotiate with the United Kingdom and the European Union to secure trade agreements with those entities and economies, as well as with the Pacific Alliance countries of Colombia, Mexico, Peru and Chile. We are also re-engaging with India as part of our comprehensive strategic partnership arrangements with India on a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement, also building on a new economic cooperation program with Vietnam and our strategies to pursue opportunities with the market of Indonesia.
Senator Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Youth and Sport, Aged Care and Senior Australians, Senator Colbeck. What is the lowest hourly rate a young frontline supermarket worker could be paid under the Morrison government's industrial relations changes? And can the minister guarantee no young worker will be worse off as a result of the Morrison government's industrial relations changes?
Minister for Youth and Sport, Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. I don't have access with me to every award available to workers in Australia, Mr President. So I will have to take on notice the award rates for young people working in supermarkets, Mr President. But, Mr President, the reforms that we are seeking to bring in as a part of our industrial relations reform are about making everybody better off, Mr President, about business being better off, about employees being better off, and of course creating jobs so that the economy is better off, Mr President. So that is the focus of the legislation that we are bringing forward, Mr President, and that is why we work every day to ensure that the economy can recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, and we have some, I think, quite sensible suggestions to put forward as a part of this package, Mr President. And as the Leader has said today in the Senate, over 170 hours of consultation between the government and the unions with respect to developing a package of reforms, sensible industrial relations reforms, that can be presented to this country in the interests of all Australians, whether that be younger Australians, older Australians, whether that be business and the economy more broadly, Mr President. We need to have the flexibility in the economy, in the system, to be able to create new jobs, for industry to create new jobs, and to employ young Australians and old Australians alike, Mr President. That is the focus of the reforms that we are bringing forward, Mr President. We want everybody to be better off. We want young Australians at work to be better off. We want older Australians at work to be better off. We want business to be better off. And we clearly, Mr President, would like to see the economy better off.
Senator Gallagher, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. I note the minister won't guarantee that young workers will not be worse off. Can the minister guarantee a 61-year-old frontline aged care worker will not be worse off under the Morrison government's proposed industrial relations changes? And can the minister guarantee no older worker will be worse off as a result of the Morrison government's industrial relations changes?
Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. And can I say the claims that have been made by the opposition with respect to aged care workers in the last couple of days, the suggestion that they will have a wage cut by Christmas is an absolute disgrace, given the hard work that aged care workers in particular have undertaken over the last 12 months. The suggestion that aged care workers are going to get a cut in their salaries by Christmas, Mr President, is an absolute disgrace, Mr President.
Order, Senator. Order. Senator Wong is on her feet on my left. Senator Wong.
Thank you, Mr President. Well, the word disgrace coming out of this minister's mouth is
Order.
interesting, but my
point
point
of
of order is direct
relevance.
My point of order is direct relevance. He has asked a question about whether or not older workers will be worse off as a result of this government's changes. I ask him to return to that point.
I think while the people who ask the question may not like the terms in which it is answered, he is addressing the point raised in it, and there's an opportunity, I think today, after question time, to debate it. So I call the minister to continue. He was being directly relevant. Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. Mr President, the suggestion, Mr President, that aged care workers are going to get a wage cut for Christmas is wrong. Mr President. It will not happen, and it's a disgrace, Mr President, that the Labor Party are suggesting.
Senator Colbeck. Senator Wong on a point of order.
Point of order. It is the Morrison's government industrial relations changes about which
Senator
we are
Wong.
asking. I'm asking him to return to that point, Mr President.
That was part of the question. I think, with respect, Senator Wong, I've allowed you to emphasise it. He is talking about what I would consider to be the policy currently before the other place that is the subject of the question. There's 16 seconds remaining. Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. Mr President, and coming from this party, who at the last election specifically ruled out an increase in wages for aged care workers, Mr President.
What I will say is a phrase in response to a pointed question can still not. I'll hear your submission, Senator Wong. Yep.
Mr President, how can what this party may or may not have done prior to the last election possibly be directly relevant under the standing orders to a question which goes to the effect of this government's proposed industrial relations changes? If you say it's not going to happen, guarantee
Senator
it.
Wong, Senator Birmingham.
President, on the point of order, and I've almost lost count of the number of points of order that Senator Wong has chosen to take in interrupting Senator Colbeck. But on the point of order, Senator Colbeck, in responding to this question, has spoken very clearly about aged care workers, the wages of aged care workers, the wage arrangements for aged care workers, and the repetitive points of order from those opposite, now seeking to take one sentence out of a 2-minute answer that has overwhelmingly been directly relevant. It's simply an abuse of the procedures and the standing orders.
On the point of order, I have ruled previously a glancing phrase in an answer is not going to make someone not directly relevant. An answer that consisted of attacking the opposition or outlining their policy would not be directly relevant. That said, I do grant some latitude to the Leader of the Opposition in making points of order, and I think I do need to allow the minister, when points of order are made and parts of the questions are restated, the minister can use a glancing phrase in response to that. He did, at the end of that, in my view, turn back to the answer because he was then talking about the wages of these particular workers. Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. And the intention of the reforms that are being proposed, Mr President, as I've said before, are to make people better
Senator
off.
Colbeck, time for the answer has expired. Order. Senator Gallagher is on her feet. Senator O'Neill. Senator Gallagher.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Given the minister has demonstrated a failure to answer simple questions across your portfolio areas, will this be his last question time as a minister in this place?
Senator Colbeck. Order. Order on my left.
Thank you, Mr President. Can I say I look forward to continuing to do my work within this portfolio. I know that all of us on the front bench, Mr President, all of us on the front bench serve at the pleasure of the Prime Minister, and I respect that enormously, Mr President. I look forward to continuing to do my work, but one thing I do know, Mr President, and one thing that gives me great satisfaction, whatever happens in the reshuffle when it comes, that lot will still be on the other side.
Order. Order. Senator Davey.
Thank you, Mr.
Senator
President.
Davies on her feet. Order. On my right on this occasion, Senator Davey.
That was a good response, though. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Agriculture, Drought and Emergency Management, Senator Ruston. Minister, could you please outline how the Liberals and the Nationals in government are supporting our agricultural sector through the recent natural disasters, bushfire, drought and now COVID and the COVID recession?
The Minister representing the Minister for Agriculture, Drought and Emergency Management, Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President, and I thank Senator Davey for her question and also her long-standing interest in all things agriculture. Well, the Australian agricultural industry has a proud history of overcoming adversity, and I think if you look at strength in the face of adversity, you don't have to look much further than the subject of Senator Mackenzie's recently launched book, Blackjack McEwen, which was launched today. And like previous governments, previous Conservative governments, the Morrison government will continue to back our agricultural sector. We'll back them through droughts, we'll back them through floods, we'll back them through bushfires, and this year we have backed them through the coronavirus pandemic. By committing to them, drought support, $10 billion.
Senator West-Wilson on a point of order.
Of order about the prop on Senator Mackenzie's
I didn't see that.
If senators want to read a good book, I'd recommend
Senator
Mackenzie book, A Secret Australia.
Order.
A Secret
Sit
Australia
down,
by Senator Love.
everyone. We've nearly made it. Just everyone bite their tongues for 4 more minutes. Senator Mackenzie, I am going to ask you to reading material of that matter would not be in order in the chamber anyway, I understand. So I think it probably needs to be placed in your drawer or a folder. Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And as I was saying, the Conservative governments over the years have had a very proud relationship with our agricultural sector, and this government is no exception. And we'll stand side by side with our farming sector through tough times to make sure that we continue to roll out programs that will support the huge contribution that the Australian agricultural sector makes to our economy. Just as an example, through the coronavirus pandemic, the government announced a $328 million busting congestion for agricultural exporters package to grow our food and fibre exports. From day one of the pandemic, the government recognised the pivotal role that agriculture would play, and particularly the pivotal role that agriculture will play in the economic recovery. We've made sure not just to look after the agricultural sector itself, but to make sure that our supply chains remain open and safe, making sure that our access to the rest of the world remains in place by, for instance, addressing the air freight shortages and the disrupted supply chains overseas through the International Freight Assistance Mechanism put in place by Senator Birmingham. We stand side by side
Order,
with
Senator
our farmers.
Ruston. Senator Davey, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Minister. And as you've described, the past 12 months have been incredibly challenging. Can you please tell the chamber how our agricultural industry has performed in the last 12 months, despite the challenges they've faced?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and once again, thank you, Senator Davey, for the opportunity you've to say what a great industry Australian agriculture is, and to acknowledge the fact that despite the headwinds that this industry has been experiencing over recent times, it remains an industry with a great ability to thrive under adversity. In fact, on Monday, the Australian Bureau of Agricultural Resource Economics had revised its outlook for agricultural output in 2021. The gross value of agricultural production is forecast to rise by 7% to $65 billion this year. And given we've had droughts, given we've had fires, given we've had the coronavirus pandemic, this is an outstanding result, and it is an absolute testament
to the resilience of our Australian agricultural sector, and this government, the Morrison government, will stand side by side our farmers to make sure we work with them to achieve $100 billion worth of agriculture.
Senator Ruston. Senator Davey, a final supplementary question.
Thank you. Finally, Minister, as we head into the busy Christmas holiday season, and I wish all of my farmers in harvest at the moment a happy harvest, how can we Australians continue to support our farmers and our regional communities?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, as we all know in this place, there will be no argument from anybody in this place. Australia produces the best food and fibre in the world, and that's why our food and fibre commands the premium prices that it does. It's not only clean and green, it's sustainably grown and it's produced ethically. So this festive season, I'd urge everybody in this place and everybody watching, because I'm sure the whole of Australia is watching Question Time today, to buy local. And if you can, have a look. Make sure that that little green and gold icon that says Made in Australia is at the forefront of your mind when you're purchasing your Christmas presents or your food to share with loved ones over Christmas. Could be apricots from my hometown in the Riverland. It could be mangoes from the Northern Territory that you want to make to put on the top of the pav, or in the case of our colleague from the Northern Territory, maybe make a mango daiquiri out of it.
Order.
Prawns from Coast Harbour, Moreton Bay bugs. There are so many amazing Australian products that you could be putting on the table this Christmas.
Order.
Urge you to
Time
buy Australian.
for the Senator Polly.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care and Senior Australians,
Order
Senator
on my
Colbeck.
left. Senator Polly.
My question is to the Minister for Aged Care and Senior Australians. This year, 2,000 aged care residents contracted COVID-19, and tragedy struck 685 people who died under this minister's watch in residential care. Why has the minister not resigned?
Minister for Aged Care and Senior Australians, Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. Actually, Senator Polly's not correct with the number of people who've died as a result of COVID attack to aged care. It's 693. There are 8 who have been receiving home care packages that have also tragically passed away, Mr President, and to each one of those 693 families and their communities, I extend my sincerest condolences and the condolences of the government. It's a tragedy that we've had to suffer, the pandemic that we have this year, Mr President, and I think as we come to Christmas, it is a pertinent thing for us to do, just to reflect on the year that we've had, to reflect on the tragedy that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought upon us all, and again to extend our condolences, our sincere condolences to all of those families who have suffered a death because of the effects of the pandemic, Mr President. As I said when I was asked about my position earlier, I will continue to work at the pleasure of the Prime Minister. I acknowledge, with respect to my portfolio responsibilities, I take my role in this place and in my portfolio extremely seriously. We are in the middle of a very significant reform process. I look forward to the final report of the Royal Commission, which is due on the 26th of February, and I continue to work with my department and my colleagues on the reforms that we will bring to this place off the back of the Royal Commission report, Mr President. So I continue to apply myself to the role, which is the responsibility that the Prime Minister has given me, and I will continue to do that, Mr President, hopefully through the process that we'll go through with the reshuffle, Mr President.
Senator Polly, a supplementary question.
In the Morrison government's broken aged care system, we heard shocking stories of ants crawling from wounds and older Australians not dying of COVID-19, but of neglect. Is the minister confident he will remain in the portfolio at the end of this month?
Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. Mr President, my role in I take my position in this extremely seriously, and quite frankly, none of this that we're dealing with is about me. The thing that is in my focus, Mr. President, the thing that is in my focus is that 1.2 million Australians who are receiving care, whether that be CHSP, home care, veterans care or residential aged care, as a part of the service delivery provided by aged care providers around the country. They are my focus. This is not about me. This is not about me. And I will continue to have and place my focus on all of those Australians who are receiving care. That is my responsibility. And I will continue to do that assiduously while ever I hold this role.
Senator Polley, a final supplementary question.
Under this minister's watch, there was no dedicated plan for COVID-19 in aged care. Tens of thousands were attacked and assaulted in his broken aged care system. Ants crawled from wounds. 693 older Australians in residential aged care died. And as a result, the Senate censured this minister. Will this be your last appearance in question time as Minister for Aged Care and Senior Australians? Because it should be.
Order. Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this government has never pretended. This government has never pretended that everything was all well with the aged care system, Mr. President, because it was this government, Mr. President, it was this government that called the Royal Commission into aged care, Mr. President. It was this government.
Senator Green.
And Mr. President, the report,
Senator Polley.
the interim report of the Aged Care Royal Commission reflected on over 20 years across a number of governments of both political persuasions about the impact and the progression of the aged care sector, Mr. President. So it was this government that took the responsibility to call the Royal Commission. And it is this government that will respond to it, Mr. President. But this opposition, Mr. President, has at every opportunity failed to act, including in the budget and reply where not a single cent or home care package was allocated. And, Mr. President, as I said before, whatever happens at the reshuffle, this lot will still be on the other side.
Senator Birmingham.
Mr. President, I ask that further questions be placed on notice. And as so many books were waved around during question time, I'm very excited to be able to table for the Senate the ACCC's report into the perishable agricultural goods inquiry, which I'm sure will be a thrilling read for all.
Senators, could I also would like to I'd just like to table a determination made by the Speaker and myself made under the Parliamentary Service Act 1999 relating to the appointment of the Secretary of the Department of Parliamentary Services.